Hey, IT changemakers, and welcome to the DEX Show with Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. It's a very special day whenever we welcome back this guest to the DEX Show, which we've now done, I'm proud to say, 3 times, including today, right? He is one of the, I would honestly say, one of the most influential thinkers and voices on the future of the workplace of the last 10 years, easily. He has, if you look at his TED talk now from I think about 8 years ago, 500,000 views. He's had best-selling books, featured in Forbes, and at this point, he's in danger of becoming a DEX Show regular. All the same, he is Jacob Morgan. We're delighted to welcome you back. So, how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while, but I'm excited to be back.
Fab. Last year, Jacob, we had it was actually an event, but you were able to kind of come on and guest for Next Think's ambassadors, and that was all about leading with vulnerability.
Yep.
First of all, for anything I've missed or anyone who doesn't know you somehow, a quick introduction and maybe bring us up to date on what you've been working on since we last spoken.
Yeah, it's been a few years. The most recent project has been this new book, which is sitting right here, called the 8 Laws of Employee Experience. So I've been spending a lot of time giving talks on that book. I launched a CHRO group, which I don't think I had since the last time we spoke. So we have 35 chief human resource officers in there. That's called Future of Work Leaders. I've been very active with my newsletter, growing the podcast. So a couple of new things, but some old things that I've been focusing on growing as well.
The book stood out to me as one of the reasons we had to reach back out. And you know what it reminded me of, right? It reminded me a lot of your first appearance on the show back in 2023. And to set the scene for that, we were, I guess, starting to come out of a pandemic and the kind of workplace culture that the pandemic created and the expectations that it created, right? And we're lucky enough to have you on as a guest. And I did not expect, I'll be honest, I did not expect the level of skepticism you had to what was sort of at the time the run of
It's only gotten worse.
It's exactly what I want to know. I want all the updates, Jake. Well done. But yes, so coming out of COVID, that dominant narrative, it was all about employee empowerment, flexibility, well-being. And you were already pushing back on it then. I mean, I'm just curious, was that specifically the line of thinking that developed into this book, or the precepts of the new work?
It's definitely a theme, but I wouldn't say it's like kind of a core foundational element of the book. The main premise of the book is that a lot of companies just lost their way over the past 5 years. Obviously, well-being and creating an entitlement culture is certainly one of the many things that are addressed in there, but I wouldn't say it's like a core or central theme of the book. The broader theme is, like I said, just companies during and post-pandemic, they were pushed and challenged in ways that they didn't anticipate, and so they lost sight of the things that really matter at work. And so the whole point of this book is a return back to basics for these 8 laws, but it's looking at these 8 things not just from a present day perspective, but also looking out over the next 5 to 10 years to see how these things are going to evolve. So it has those themes in there, but it expands on a lot of other stuff.
Very interesting. But I guess it's a different way of a different angle of discussing that genealogy almost, right, of the book is the way COVID impacted workplace culture and employee expectations. And leaving that behind, because I think we've covered that in previous conversations. How do you feel things have played out since then culturally?
So I did an article recently on my Substack, and I said that 2026 is the year of accountability and responsibility. And so I think now, rightfully so, we're seeing a massive pushback against all these things that happened over the past 5 years. You're seeing organizations who are reducing perks. They want employees back to the office. They're challenging employees to figure out and to be able to demonstrate, what did you work on? What impact did you have? What value are you bringing to the business? So we're seeing a lot more of those types of conversations. Other companies, I think like Slack and Meta, et cetera, have come out and said that we no longer care about your performative work. We want to know the actual work that you're doing. So we don't care about the hours you're putting in, how many meetings you've attended, how many presentations you're doing. We want to know how you're actually driving some sort of value for the business. So we're seeing a massive reversal of what happened over the past 5 years. I think it's actually a good and much needed thing, but that 2026 is definitely the big year of that. And a lot of the CHROs that I talk to are grateful for it. They want that to happen.
Unpack for me that concept, performative work. It is something that fascinates me, I have to say, in the modern workplace.
So performative work is the idea that there used to be a time when you could look like you're working without actually really adding value to the business. So you look like you're online, you spend time working on presentations, you join meetings, you participate in online, you're leaving comments, you're sharing ideas, you are doing performative work, but on the back end, you're not actually adding value to the business anymore. You're just kind of, you're there and it looks like you're working, but you're not really. And
Well, I mean, you're working, right? It's, I mean, for people who are always
but it's
putting on or
performative.
presenting, it's not like they're coasting per se.
Yeah, no, they
There's
kind
a
of are.
nuance to that.
But yeah, but it's performative work, right? I mean, so to give you an example, even during the pandemic, I had a lot of friends that were working remotely. And like one friend in particular, he would always work out at the gym and he would have his laptop next to him. And I would say, what do you do? Why do you have your laptop with you while you're working out? And he would say, well, because every like 10 or 15 minutes, I have to wiggle the mouse so that my indicator says green. So people think that I'm online and I'm working.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of a metaphor for, I think, what a lot of employees have done, right? Like I said, you join meetings, you leave comments, you're doing things to make it look like you're working, but you're not actually adding value to the business. And so if you're not genuinely adding value to the business, then what is the point of the work that you're doing? And so now what happened with AI is removing a lot of that performative work because AI is able to do drafts, to do analysis, it's able to do a lot of these very basic high level things. And if they get removed from your plate, then now what are you left with doing? Now you have to actually focus on the substantive aspects of work. So not drafting things, not putting together PowerPoints, right? AI can do all of that for you. Now your job is going to be actually, how do I make an impact? How do I drive value in the business? How do I get people to buy into the vision? How do I see through a project from point A to point B? How do I deliver a better customer or a client experience? How do I sell and close a deal? How do I come up with a new product or service? Right? So these are more value creative aspects of work. And that I think is what a lot of employees are being challenged to do, right? So, I mean, on my team, for example, I have a small team, but if I have somebody on my team doing social media, I don't care like how many graphics they make, how many videos they edit. Like that's great, but what I care is how are these things performing? Are they making an impact in terms of are we growing our audience? Are we getting more people joining our CHRO group? Those are the types of things that matter. And so that is analogous to what's happening inside of companies. I don't care how many meetings you attend. I don't care how many PowerPoints that you make. I don't care if you sit in front of your computer for 80 hours. I want to know what's the impact that those things have had on the business, on the team, or on the function. And so, like I said, AI is really exposing all of that because it's removing this first layer of, like I said, performative work. And it's kind of revealing what are you actually doing beyond that.
We're going to get stuck into AI and all the implications that flow from it
I'm
momentarily.
happy to talk about AI all you want.
I'm sure. Before we do, I just I just love the concept of performative work so much, and I tell you why. Because I think some of the aspects of it that you describe, which are worth tying together with it, they kind of describe what used to be called like what was it, presenteeism.
Yep.
There was that whole concept a few years ago that was fashionable, just talking about being on green, being in front of your laptop, being in the office, and then there's the kind of the quantity versus quality dynamic as well, which we could find people talking about in previous years. Now, that's not to say that those two trends haven't become more pronounced and more relevant. But what performative work seems to introduce to that and create a kind of triad with them is this notion of work as performance. It has no external impact. It's all a kind of internal, performative, kind of almost like a form of theater. And I'm wondering what you see as the origins of that
Oh, I think it's always existed. Since the dawn of time of the first organization that's ever existed, the first company that's always existed. There are always times when there are people, you have a job, and I was this person as well in some companies that I had early on in my career, where I wanted to always make it look like I'm working. I wanted to. Sometimes you don't actually have substantive work to do. Sometimes maybe you finish work that is not complicated and you finish it much earlier than you're supposed to. Sometimes you don't really know what to do and you're a part of a team. And so you make it look like you're working and you hope other people are going to pick up the slack. There are lots of reasons for why this exists, but it happens on team sports. It happens in organizations. It happens all the time that there are always just some high performers who are able to really go above and beyond. There are always people who are kind of in the middle, and there are always people who are going to be, sort of the coasters and who are looking for shortcuts. But even a high performer can be doing performative work for a number of reasons. Like I said, sometimes the work is completed. Sometimes it's easy work and it's not challenging work, like a number of different reasons. Sometimes maybe you're using AI, you get the work done quickly, much faster than you would normally. Now you don't really have anything to do, but you want to make it look like you are still kind of, working and doing stuff. So the origins is just kind of it's just a human thing, right? It's just the nature of the world. But also because you can get away with it, right? So you can get away with doing this type of work. I mean, I've talked to lots of employees in large organizations where, um, especially when you get to thousands and thousands of employees, there are lots of positions and roles where if you can kind of hide and sneak away in a corner somewhere, people for the most part will leave you alone. And you're still getting a salary, you're getting your benefits, you're getting all that sort of stuff, but you're just kind of like tucked away in a corner. Maybe you're just an individual contributor and nobody has direct line of sight to you. Maybe you're a part of a team, but you just kind of, step in and do certain projects here and there. And if you can find those types of, the dark corners and shadows inside your company where people leave you alone, you just coast. You don't really do anything. It's almost like a Seinfeld episode, right? I don't know if you
Yes,
remember, there was a Seinfeld
George, isn't it? Yeah, I think
yeah, there was a
precisely.
Seinfeld episode with the Penske files, where basically what happens, George, gets this job, and then he gets into this office. He sleeps for several hours, and all of a sudden the manager comes in and he says, "Let me take a look at these files that you've been working on." And George hasn't actually touched the files. He doesn't know what's in there. He didn't read anything. And the guy skips through it really quick and he says, "Oh, this is amazing. This is fantastic." This is the client that looks in. And then shortly afterwards, the boss of the company, of the firm where George is a part of, says, "What the hell have you been doing here? And you didn't actually go through any of these files." And, you have to watch the whole episode. George says, "Oh, I'm Penske material. He came in and said I did a great job." And so there are lots of those types of opportunities where people just try to coast. And it's just a human thing. It's a natural thing. People try to get away with stuff all the time. But it's it's partially, in some cases, the organization's liability as well, because sometimes you're not giving employees challenging work. Sometimes you are not making sure that your employees have things that they need to do all the time. Sometimes you're hiring too many people. And that's one of the things that I think we're seeing now is most companies are 10 to 20 to maybe 30%. If you listen to Mark Andreessen, he says even 50% too big. And so the layoffs that they're seeing has nothing to do with AI. We just overhired and we brought in too many people. And so now we're just kind of trimming it. And so if you overhire, you have too many people there, there's not enough work to go around. So everyone's kind of just doing a little bit of work, and the rest of the time you're just sort of floating. So mismanagement in terms of hiring, prioritization, allocating resources, building team. I mean, it's a traditional corporate hierarchical problem where the bigger the organization gets, the harder it becomes to track and to follow and to understand what everybody's doing. This problem typically doesn't exist in a smaller company or in a startup because everyone is in go mode, everyone is hustling. And if you're not working, it's very, very visible to everybody else in the company. But again, the bigger you get, the more sort of cloudy and less visibility everyone else has. And it's just one of the natural consequences.
Why does it matter, Jacob? And I don't just mean why does it matter for an organization who obviously you're it's fair to say if the result is inefficiency, like that's obvious enough. Why
Yes.
does it matter societally if, why does it matter for us, all of us together, if there's a degree of kind of wastage and coasting and, and almost excessive opportunity, inordinate rewards. In a way, you could look at that, right? And you could think,
Yeah.
good, like why does it matter for us?
Uh, well, it doesn't matter for you kind of on a personal level, but if you want to have a job, it matters, right? So if you just look at it from a societal lens of like, why can't I just have more time? Great, have all the time you want. Read books. You don't need to work if you don't want to. But if you want to have a job where you're a part of an organization that's paying you, if you have aspirations to get into a leadership role, if you want to be able to pay for your mortgage, if you want to have a family and to be able to pay for your kids, your spouse, your significant other, you need a job. And so if you want to have that job and you want to have more opportunities for yourself and those around you, then you can't get by coasting. And it very much gets revealed. It's kind of, my daughter plays competitive chess, and my son and daughter are both going to start playing competitive tennis soon as well. And so it's kind of like, well, why do I need to prepare for a chess tournament? You don't, if you don't want to win. And, early when my daughter started playing chess, that has happened. I would push her really hard. I really push my kids hard. And sometimes my daughter would be like, I don't really need to prepare or do much. And I'll say, okay. And she'll show up to a tournament and she'll get destroyed and she'll lose a lot of rating points. And I'll say, well, what did you learn from this? And she'll say, I really need to work hard. I need to prepare for the tournaments that I'm doing. And I say, exactly. And so thankfully that doesn't happen anymore. But it's sort of a similar analogy. Like, you don't have to prepare or work hard before you go to a tournament. You don't have to work hard when you show up to your organization to do the job that you need to do. You don't have to do any of these things. But then don't be surprised when you get the consequences of not doing that. Don't be surprised if you get laid off. Don't be surprised if you don't get promoted. Don't be surprised if you're not given the opportunities that those around you are given. So, that's kind of my general response, right? Everybody can do what they want, but just be realistic with the expectations and the outcomes that you're going to get on the other side. And there are certainly lots of people out there who don't want to work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. They want to work 32 hours a week. That's fine. Have that conversation with your boss, but then don't expect to get put into a leadership role, right? I mean, if you want to work 32 to 40 hours a week and you have aspirations of being a VP or an SVP, not going to happen. I've never met an executive in my entire life ever at any company, large or small, that became an executive by working 32 to 40 hours a week. There was actually a study that came out, and I don't remember the exact stats. I'm going to try to pull it up right now, where it said something along the lines of, oh, here it is. I think it was published in Fortune. Gen Z is willing to give up $5,000 in pay to log off at 5 o'clock every day, but they still expect to be able to get a job working in the corner office. Meaning, they're willing to give up pay to not have to work, they just want to work the minimum, the standard working hour. They're willing to even give up pay to do that, but their expectations are that I could still become a C-level executive. And that is just a very misaligned, mismatched reality that does not exist in any way, shape, or form at any company that I've ever seen. And so that mismatch, I think, is a problem for a lot of organizations and a lot of employees around the world. Right? We're not being honest about what it takes to get to certain levels. We're not honest about the type of corporate culture that our businesses are making.
Could I point out what I mean? I don't think it is a paradox, but I'm interested in you fleshing out a little bit what is arguably a paradox, as it were, or superficially could seem a paradox, which is this idea that you're placing a big emphasis on how much you work, and yet your book is about, and your general thesis is about quality over quantity. Which is so disentangle that for me, as I'm sure you're able. Just.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not making it sound like it's the hours that you put in. It's obviously the quality of work that you do. But to do good quality work requires time. And so there are very few people out there who can do great quality work in a very short amount of time. And similarly, if you are one of those people and you are able to do great quality work in a short amount of time and you have more time and you have aspirations of getting into a leadership role, then you should use that extra time to do more quality work. And again, this is only if your expectations are to get to a certain level in your life and at an organization. I fully acknowledge that there are people who don't care about that. And if that's you, then this doesn't apply to you. This is specifically for people who want to get to that C level, the VP level, the EVP level. If that is your goal and your aspiration, then yes, you're going to need to work hard and you are going to need to put in a lot of hours. That's just the reality of the world. If that's not you, you can just, get by, do a good job for whatever number of hours that you have to put in and be content with where you are, right? That's also okay. But again, you talk to any executive at any organization around the world, and they will tell you that it's not just the hours that you put in, but it is also the quality of work that you're able to do. But oftentimes those things go hand in hand. And by the way, putting in hours, so when I talk about work as far as putting in hours, it doesn't just necessarily mean actually doing work. It's time that you're putting in building relationships. It's time that you're putting in being visible in front of your executives and your peers. It's time that you're putting in understanding the business. Like that requires time. And so if we're both looking to get into a leadership role, let's say we both finish our work, I don't know, in 30 hours for the week. You want to get into a C-suite role. I want to get into a C-suite role. We both completed our project in 30 hours. And you're of the mindset like, hey, I got 30 hours. I'm going to chill the rest of the time. I did a great job for the 30 hours. I delivered a fantastic, whatever, sales pitch that I needed to do. I'm going to chill. And I'm like, great. I did the same thing. I got a lot of extra time. I'm going to put in another 20 hours this week. What am I going to do for that 20 hours? I'm going to go through and I'm going to build relationships. I'm going to check in on on clients and prospects. I'm going to try to get in a coaching or mentoring session with my leader. I'm going to make extra time to come into the office to make sure that my leaders and my peers see me. I'm going to get ahead and try to work on another project for the following week. So I'm going to be doing things to consistently get ahead because that's the aspiration that I have of where I want to go.
Is there an implication? Is there a dimension to this we should be aware of? That okay, so if you're discriminating here between people who have very high aspirations and those who don't, or those who shouldn't, those whose aspirations are maybe unrealistic based upon how much they're willing to get in. Is there a sense that with AI, another impact of the technology is that it kind of puts us all in the former bracket if we want to have jobs at all? As in, now at this point, the opportunity to coast, the opportunity to be something of a passenger, to be low aspiration, low output, to do your job 9 to 5, and to be the cog in the machine, is that disappearing? And therefore, does the message that you're saying you're trying to convey to the highest achievers, the higher achievers, the would-be highest achievers, actually becomes a universal message for anybody who wants to continue working per se?
In a lot of ways, yeah. And this is the big debate that organizations are having internally now. This is the big debate that's happening between AI and productivity. This is exactly why a lot of organizations are starting to let go of people. And so, yes, that is right. I mean, what I think what AI is going to make it very apparent is that if you are, call it a low performer or somebody who's coasting in the organization, it is going to put a spotlight on you. It is going to shine a bright spotlight, a magnifying glass right on you. And the company is going to be able to see that, right? So if you are disengaged and you're kind of coasting and you're now one of those people that's hiding in the shadows, the lights are going to get turned on and the company is going to say, got you. You have a choice. You can either come into the light with everyone else or you could not be at this company anymore. And so, yeah, it's going to make it very, very visible who those people are inside of your organization. And that is, I think, one of the things that AI is seeing. It's one of the reasons why companies like Amazon, like Meta, are sending messages to a lot of their leaders now, and they're saying, "We want tell us what you've been working on." Right? I think it was it was either Amazon or Meta. Somebody can fact check me on this. That basically sent out a memo to all their leaders and said, for 2025, respond to this email and give us five bullets of what you've been able to accomplish last year. What impact did you make to the business? And at first, there was a lot of backlash on this. Oh my God, how could they ask our leaders what they did? But why shouldn't you be able to ask? I want to know, what impact did you bring to the business last year? I'm paying you. You have equity in the business that I'm giving you. I'm paying for your salary. I'm paying for the tools and resources that you're using. I'm paying for your bonuses. I'm paying for all of these things. I want to know, what are you doing? And so this is going to cause a lot of changes. One of the recent announcements that came out, I don't know if you saw, Salesforce told all of their senior leaders, I think it was director level and above, that they're putting a freeze on all um, salary increases as far as compensation. And what they're going to do instead is they're going to give you equity bonuses. In other words, they're going to give you more stake in the business. Why are they doing that? Well, it's exactly for this idea to combat performative work. So if you are a leader and you are, quote unquote, performing, traditionally you would be able to get by and you just get your traditional salary increase, you get your salary bonus, right? It gets split up across everyone. And so you can kind of coast and still get a salary increase. And now what Salesforce is saying is, we're going to give you more equity, which means that if the business does well, you do well. You are now going to be forced to be an owner inside the company. And that is going to force all of the leaders inside of Salesforce to realize, hey, wait a minute, like, no more coasting. I have a vested interest in the company doing well because that's my equity. I am a part owner now of the business that I'm operating in. And so what's happening is a lot of organizations are trying to figure out, how do we get all of our employees to think and be more like owners, instead of just kind of, to what you said, to be cogs. So it's a very interesting changing dynamic that's playing out inside of organizations. I mean, if you think about, like, during and even post pandemic, employees had a lot of power where they could basically say, I want more money, I want more equity, I want more of this, I want more of that. And by the way, I'm not even I don't want to come to the office anymore. And
They
during
were
the
told
pandemic,
not to come to the office, to be fair, Jacob. They were
yeah, but
in
even
many
now,
ways.
but even post pandemic, they could still
Yeah.
say, I don't want to come into the office anymore. And companies would say what? They would say, okay, that's fine. Yeah, whatever you want, whatever you want. And now that bargaining chip no longer exists, because if an employee says that, the leader is going to say, that's fine. You don't need to work here anymore. I probably can find a bot that can do most of the work that you were doing anyway. And, we don't need you. So the balance of power has shifted very much back into the hands of organizations. And I think it's actually a good thing. I think the balance of power should be around, 80%, 70 to 80% organization and 20, 30% employee. And before, that ratio was completely flipped around. And so, yes, AI is making, it's improving efficiencies, ideally, and productivity. And so what companies are now realizing, and again, this was even before AI, companies were inflated. Their headcounts were massive. And it was because for the past few years, capital was essentially free. Uh, it looked great to show that you were growing and hiring people nonstop. And that's how a lot of organizations thought. And companies are just they were too big. It was not necessary to have the size of the headcount that they had. Whether it was through mergers and acquisitions, Block realized this. They grew triple over the past 4 years. And now they're realizing, wait a minute, we have triple HR teams, triple sales teams, triple marketing teams. We can now let go of a lot of our workforce. We don't need all these people here anymore.
Mm.
And so I think the AI narrative for layoffs is a very, very tiny percentage of it. I think what companies are doing is they're using AI as a scapegoat to correct for bad hiring and strategic business decisions that they've been making over the past 5 years. And AI happens to be a good excuse for that because it makes you sound more forward thinking and cutting edge, as opposed to saying, well, yeah, we made some pretty bad choices over the past few years and we're going to make up for it.
That's so interesting. And look, I'm gonna bring it back to the philosophical questions I've been circling in a minute. But before I do, let's dig into an argument of yours in the book, which is that so much that has been mishandled through the prism or the incorrect definition given to the notion of company culture.
Yep.
Yeah. Culture as we've kind of pathologically utilized it has denoted, like a look, a feel, a vibe, a past, a kind of
Yep.
where the company likes to go and drink and eat, and so on and so forth. And in fact, it should be teeing you up here, Jacob. What should culture denote?
So one of the things that I believe, and I actually talked about this with Patrick Lencioni, we did a podcast together. Trying to remember when it was in the past, like few months. But we talked about this idea of culture being more exclusive instead of inclusive. And so what I mean by that is during and post pandemic, a lot of organizations tried to create a place for everybody. And that's not what a company culture is. A company culture is a very specific organization with a specific set of values and a specific direction. And you only want to hire people who are aligned with those values and with that direction and with the goals of the business and what the company does. And so companies have been too inclusive. And when I say that, I mean, oh, we don't care about what you believe in. We don't care about what your values are. We don't care if you believe in the vision or not. We need people. Everybody come on in, everybody, blah, 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 blah. And that created a lot of problems. And so for me, corporate culture is a very exclusive alignment between the organization and the people who work there. So, for example, you take a look at an organization like SpaceX. That is not an inclusive culture. SpaceX is not going to hire anybody. You care about work-life balance. You care about well-being. You care about, I want 32 to 40 hours. I want to coast. Not for you. SpaceX is very clear. We want somebody who is going to work like a crazy person. We will pay you extremely well. We want somebody who's able to work on some of the world's toughest problems and challenges. We want somebody who's going to do whatever it takes to solve a problem. We want somebody who, when they meet a problem, they don't say no, or they don't say, we can't figure it out. They will make it work. That's the culture of SpaceX. If that's not for you, that's fine. And it's very exclusive. And that, to me, is what corporate culture is. And so the problem that organizations, I think, have had over the past few years is they were struggling to attract and retain talent. They forgot that. And they just tried to get whoever they could to join the organization. And I think now, post-pandemic, 2026, we're getting back to accountability. We're getting back to responsibility. And we're getting back to creating more of an exclusive culture where we're trying to identify very specific people that we want to be here now. And now, as a result of AI, we can be more specific, more judicious with who we're bringing in instead of just bringing in sort of everyone. So that is, to me, how I think of corporate culture. It's a very exclusive alignment between the people and between the organization.
Excellent definition. I'm interested in your thoughts on the question of means and ends, Jacob. I mean, not to take too wide a lens, but the history of work and technology in the workplace specifically is arguably a history of increasing efficiency. Everything driven towards extrapolating efficiencies, right? And AI seems to be the latest efficiency multiplier. And of course, the more efficient you get, the less people you need. And that's kind of tacit in what we're discussing today about individual workplaces. All well and good, and I would never contest what you were arguing about. I guess the question of personal virtue and the value of personal virtue, and
But I want to push back on something you're saying, because I don't think efficiency necessarily means less people.
Okay.
I think efficiency means more opportunity to go into other areas. And so, what I mean by this is, so Jensen Huang recently gave a great interview with Jim Cramer um, on this debate around AI and impact of jobs. And so Jim Cramer asked Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, he says, what do you make of all these companies who are laying people off as a result of AI? And Jensen said that these companies just lack imagination. And so he said that today, NVIDIA is 45,000 employees. By 2036, they want to be 75,000 employees, but they also want to have 100 agents per employee who works there. And so, meaning they want to have 75,000 employees and almost 8 million agents, agentic bots who work in the organization. Now, that is an extremely efficient business, but because of their efficiency, they're able to grow and expand and create new products and services and to go into other areas, other opportunities, right? So they're talking about building data centers on the moon. So as a result of their efficiency, they're now able to think bigger. They're able to reach for goals that would have seemed insane a couple of years ago. And so the idea that efficiency has to result in fewer people, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think efficiency can lead to growth because you have new opportunities to expand. I mean, look at a company like Walmart. They have 2.1 million employees around the world, 1.6 million employees in the United States. They're one of the few companies that have come out there and they said, we're not going to cut as a result of AI. So you see different kind of paths, forks in the road that are emerging. There are some companies out there who want to use AI to become more efficient without, meaning they're trying to become more efficient and they lack the imagination. So they're just focused on their own bubble of how do we cut as many people as we can and just focus on our business. So they're using AI to cut, but there are other organizations who are using AI to grow. And so the decision that every business leader out there needs to make is, are you going to be a leader who's going to use AI to grow, or are you going to be a leader who's going to use AI to cut? And so Jensen's point was that the forward-thinking companies are using AI to grow, not to cut.
Excellent. Final two questions for you, Jacob. Thank you so much for doing this again. It's been fascinating. Just something else that stood out in your recent writing is the risks of over reliance on AI. And I guess what I've been talking about a lot is the risk of kind of some kind of poisonous mediocrity entering entering organizations through AI. Do you see a threat of organizations making poor decisions by substituting something like human judgment, human discernment,
Yes.
too readily, too easily?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the big concerns that I have. And this was even so with my CHRO group. Earlier this week, we were in Atlanta and some of us came together, and this was a big topic of conversation with some of the big CHROs there. That I don't think a lot of leaders are thinking through the longer term implications of AI. They don't think about it from the future of work lens. They think about it purely from the cost savings or revenue generation lens. And so, yeah, I mean, if you run a company of, let's say, 50,000 or 100,000 people and you give everyone access to these AI tools, you really should be thinking through what you're doing to how work gets done and to the brains of the people who are using it, especially if you're mandating it, like Accenture is doing in Meta and Amazon and all these other companies. And so I think one of the challenges is how do you make sure that employees don't become so reliant on these AI tools that they remove human judgment and discernment and decision making? And this is why I think one of the most important leadership skills going forward that nobody's teaching and talking about is human prompting. And so what I mean by that is that if you want to get a good prompt from ChatGPT or from Claude, if you want to get a good response, you give it a good prompt, right? So you give it something specific and tangible, and the better you're able to describe what you're looking for, the better the output will be. Now, as leaders and as humans, we're going to have to be able to do that on a human level with each other. And so if we're on the same team, and I come to you and you deliver a project for me, and I say, hey, Tom, did you use AI for this? And you'll say, yeah, I did. And I'll say, okay, great. What was the prompt that you used for AI to get this information? They'll tell me the prompt that you used, and I'll say, Do you think that Claude missed anything in its response? Do you think that did you agree with everything that Claude said? What would you if you had to challenge Claude and disagree with it? What points do you think Claude made that are weakest, and what do you think what would you add to them? And so what I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to pull out your judgment, your creativity, your discernment, your critical thinking. And leaders don't know how to do that from their employees because this was never a skill that we had. This is never something that we needed to do because work was done fundamentally by you. And so if you presented a project and you didn't use I would know that you did it. Now, if I know that AI is doing it, I'm trying to pull Tom out of it, right? I'm trying to pull Tom's brain out of the work that was done. This is a new skill that leaders have to learn. I don't think that anybody is talking about, and this is going to be an article that I'm going to put up fairly soon. But I think it's very important. It's a very important skill for leaders. So yeah, that's what I worried about. Is eventually you're going to basically create the Borg from Star Trek, where everybody's walking
Yes,
around.
the Borg. Yes, it's quite
Yeah, everyone's got
the
ChatGPT.
mediocrity Borg. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what's going to happen is any email, any message, any text, and I've seen this even with friends in a WhatsApp group. I saw somebody like put in something into WhatsApp and they copied it and pasted something from ChatGPT and put it into WhatsApp, and we're all like, "What the hell did you just do? Like, you can't just be a person and respond. Like, what's the matter with you?" Um, so yeah, I worry about what happens when you remove humanity from everything because work is not supposed to be perfect. You should get offended. You should get upset. You should disagree. You should debate. You should look stupid sometimes. Like, that's what it means to be a person. And so, if you have to filter everything through AI to get the perfect response, the perfect tone, the perfect XYZ, you are not a person anymore. And so, I worry that AI tools, by especially mandating it, you're going to teach employees that they have to strive for a level of perfection that is simply not possible to achieve. And you're going to shut off their brain. Even recently, an article came out on ChatGPT that basically said it does rewire your brain specifically with ChatGPT because it'll agree with you. So you'll ask it something, and unlike a coworker, like you push back on some of the things that I'm saying and we have a conversation about it. But if you were ChatGPT, you would say, "Oh my God, Jacob, that's such a great point. Yes, you're right. That's magnificent." And if I would go further with you, you would just keep agreeing and agreeing, and you become this sycophantic, trying to build me up, and there's no challenging or critical thinking. And think about what that's going to do to my brain and to my psyche and how I engage and interact with the world and my coworkers and peers. I'm going to show up and I'm going to walk around. Yeah, I know everything. And I don't think that's good. So we're not doing a good enough job of thinking through the future of work consequences of these AI tools.
Yes, there's never been. It's like, as you say, like it's like a mask that if we let it, will affix itself to all of our faces.
Yeah.
Eliminating our individual
It's
features.
like from the movie Alien, right? You're making me think of those what were those
Face
aliens
huggers.
called that like the face huggers, yes. So
Well, they're
ChatGPT,
quite distinctive, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Um,
So
Good.
that's what it's reminding me of.
So, given that, moving to our final topic, which is, of course, one of the main theme of the DEX show, which is digital employee experience. In many organizations, the experience of work is the experience of technology. How do you how can IT, how can the people in charge of this tooling rip those masks off and get back to the individuals? How can they make sure that this technology is properly regulated, not overused, not underused? What should be the guiding philosophy to the people in charge of overseeing these transformations of all these different organizations through AI?
Well, it's funny that you said um IT because this is another big debate that's happening in the space, right? Is who should be owning these things?
Indeed.
Who should be owning these tools? And one of the things that I presented for my CHRO group is I said it has to be the CHRO, it can't be IT.
Mhm.
Because right now what's happening is that the decision making of AI tools is distributed. Like finance is thinking about through the cost trade-offs of productivity and efficiency. Operations is thinking through workflow design. The CTO and CIO are thinking through kind of the workforce decisions, vendors, technology deployments. Legal is talking about governance and compliance. And so what that means for HR is HR basically has to be the executor of other people's decisions. And so for me, HR leaders have to be thinking of themselves as future of work leaders, like chief future of work officers. And they need to think more broadly, and they have to own all of this. But as far as the second part of your question was kind of a almost like a governance approach. So this is another article that I'm working on. And do you remember? Did you ever watch iRobot with Isaac Asimov?
Yes.
Okay, so
The movie,
anybody who's read,
the movie version of it.
yes, well, the movie, the book, it doesn't matter.
Right.
But what people will remember from that is that there are these the three laws of robotics. And so I've been thinking through the kind of the 5 laws of AI in the workplace. And this is kind of an article that I'm, still working on trying to flesh out. But I think every organization, there needs to be the laws of AI in your company. So the 5 laws that I put together, and granted they're not perfect, and it's still kind of a work in progress. Law number 1 should be transparency, meaning that employees should know when AI is involved in a certain decision that affects them. So whether I'm applying for a job, whether AI is helping decide a training program that I should take, whether somebody else gets promoted and I don't, I should have a level of transparency with understanding how did AI make that decision and why.
And from what you were saying, management should also have that
Yep.
employees should have that transparency towards management, right?
Yes. Right now that doesn't exist. It's a black box. Nobody understands how these things are being done. Second is human primacy. Law number 2, meaning that humans remain primarily accountable, always. AI can assist, but you can't do something and then say, oh, the AI made me do it. The AI decided this. I didn't know. AI told me. Humans have to remain accountable. Number 3 is honest attribution, meaning that the credit and the blame is correctly assigned between human and AI. And so you really need to understand. So again, the human remains primarily accountable, but if there's sort of a decision that gets done, you really need to understand where did the AI make a mistake? Where did the human make a mistake? Ultimately, the human is still accountable, but you have to understand kind of the role that everybody played in there. So you have to have attribution to decisions that were made, to how certain things were done, because both people play a role. The third one is true cost accounting, which also doesn't exist. And true cost accounting is understanding what is the true cost of AI ROI. How much are you actually spending on it? What is the actual value that it's bringing? Again, there's no clarity on this. Most people think that when you use AI, you give employees a license for $20 a month. Yes, that works for a lot of people. But for example, if you're a developer inside of an organization, so the way that these AI models charge that a lot of people don't realize is through tokens. And a token is basically a very small word. It's like 3/4 of a word. And so anytime you type something in to an AI tool, it's costing tokens. And anytime an AI tool gives you a response back, it's costing tokens. And so a lot of these models, especially Claude, if you're using their latest, the Opus 4.6 model, it'll throttle you after you've exceeded a certain number of tokens. It'll say, oh, no, you've exceeded your bandwidth. You got to wait 5 hours. And, and you can opt to pay more to buy more tokens or not. Now, if you're a developer and you're working on something complex, you want to build an app, you want to review code, a database. What's happening is that these agentic AI tools are working 24/7 nonstop, and they're going through tokens like nothing. And so what's happening is now you're spending thousands of dollars all the time cycling through code, reviewing code, checking code, debugging code per employee that's potentially using it. And so now you're not only paying for the employee to review it, you're also paying a lot of money for the usage of the AI tools. And a lot of people don't understand the cost of that, right? So what is the true cost of using these AI tools when you're bringing in the people, when you're also bringing in, accounting for the tokens? And the last law should be reversibility, meaning that any decision that affects a human being should be able to have a human override path. So in any situation where AI is making a decision that impacts a human being, another human being should be able to override the decision that the AI tool makes. And I think that is a good high level 5 laws of AI in the workplace that companies
I
can
agree.
tweak
I agree.
and adjust and do as they need. But we need to have something like that because it doesn't exist in any organization at companies around the world. That path just doesn't exist.
Yeah, we're going to find out the hard way what works at this rate. It's fair to say.
Yeah, we're just kind of, winging it, so to speak.
Yeah, a little bit. Jacob, thank you so much for coming back on the show. It was one of the most enjoyable chat we've had yet to me, mate. And really, really loved hearing your latest thoughts. Great 5 rules at the end there as well. Thanks for that. I think sneak peek, right?
Yeah, my pleasure. It's always fun to talk.
Fantastic.
That's it for this week's DEX Show. We'll be back next week. And if you don't already, be sure to follow the show so you don't miss an episode. Until next time.